When I was a tiny baby content creator, this was my very first viral series ever. It was my morning routine, like my slow starts, which shocked me because this is like as inherent to my classroom as like lining up or raising our hands or coming to the carpet for a mini lesson. I was like, if y'all aren't doing this, then what are y'all doing? And then I quickly learned via the comment section that this is a huge pain point for teachers, our morning times. Like kids are coming in hot. We can't keep them quiet. How do we take on morning work? How do we like manage morning work? How do we keep our kids engaged and calm? How do we deal with breakfast? And I was like, oh, this I can help with. So we're gonna get into exactly how I do it, exactly how I do my like slow start, but also if you only have like 5 minutes and you have your whole group of kids at the door waiting for you, how to make that work, how to make it work when you have multiple classes, how to make it work when you serve breakfast, different variations, how to make this work for you in your classroom. We're even gonna get into pack up. So let's talk about it. So I feel like to hit this series really, really well, I want to give you guys like a quick crash course in executive functioning. So go ahead and add that to the list of things that we didn't learn in college, or I didn't learn in college. But executive functioning skills is basically like your brain's organization system. So you better bet that all of our kids are basically like defunct in executive functioning skills. So I'm going to give you guys like a crash course. I'm going to read through some of these and I want you guys to think if these sound familiar. Let me wait till these sirens are done outside. All right, executive functioning skill number 1, emotional control. These are in no particular order, by the way. Emotional control. So this obviously shows up in a ton of different ways, but think the kid who flips out because you choose fishing frenzy instead of tower defense and book it. They shut down, they explode, they flip a desk, they cry and stop talking, they might pout, they have a hard time bouncing back, they overreact for like the really small things, like she keeps looking at me, like it's that type of situation. They might talk to you like really crazy when they're mad, and you're like, whoa, where is this coming from? That's emotional regulation, emotional control. Number 2, impulse control. This is the always out of our seats, blurting out, constantly talking, the kind of situations where you're like, why would you do that? That's impulse control. Working memory. This is like whenever you have like a long list of directions, like a morning routine or a pack up routine, long division, they have a really hard time with those things. They might be like a really bright kid and like not really struggle otherwise academically, but they have a really hard time with like keeping all the steps in their mind. Task initiation. This is the kid who sits there for 10 minutes because they didn't have a pencil. This is the kid who, whenever it's time to get to work, they have to take a bathroom break, they sharpen their pencil, they find a million other things to do other than get to work. You're sitting working with a group and you look up and they're just like sitting there. And you're like, what are you doing? Task initiation. Number 5 is planning. So this might look like, a kid who doesn't typically struggle, but like gets really behind on their work sometimes, or like sometimes will like spend too long on like small details, small minor things, or like unimportant steps, and then like completely fall behind. Lots of unfinished work, forgetting stuff like library books, homework until the very last minute. Number 6 is cognitive flexibility. This executive functioning skill will really test your patience, or at least it does for me. Like it can be really, really tough or frustrating whenever kids struggle with cognitive flexibility. For the teacher, it's difficult for us when kids struggle with this executive functioning skill. So what this might look like in kids is like they have a really hard time when plans change, like, freaking out whenever you have to move snack time and getting like really upset about that. They might have a really hard time like cooperating in groups. Like they just can't get along with like a group of kids. They have a really hard time doing things the way someone else wants to do them. They may like argue with you over like little choices that you make in your classroom whenever they think it should be another way. That's a tough one. Organization, we know what this looks like. The messy backpack, the messy folders, the messy desk, the stuff everywhere, the stuff all around their seat. Always missing papers, always needing like an extra copy, can never find their stuff. You know how it goes. Self-monitoring. So this is like make a lot of careless mistakes, turn in your work whenever you like didn't even do the back. Your name isn't on your paper. Everyone's lining up for specials and they're still at their desk like 3 steps behind. They like confidently bring you their work and it's like completely wrong. And then of course, how can we forget focus or sustained attention? So this one can kind of like actually fly under the radar because we get the impulse control focus a lot, but focus can also look like a kid sitting there like not really getting any work done, and then maybe you like pull them to come work with them like one-on-one, and you realize that you were like constantly having to redirect them like after every 10 seconds. It's like, look back at your paper, look back at your paper, come on, get this done. Kids can lack in focus but not really struggle with impulse control, so they're like quiet or they kind of fly under the radar. But like I said, maybe you're working one-on-one with them and like y'all just read something together, or you just looked at a story problem together and they cannot tell you anything that you just said. If you have windows or like an open concept classroom, that's a nightmare for these kids. Okay, so why am I telling you all of this? Because these skills have to be explicitly taught, and you better believe that our kids these days are like super inept in a lot of these executive functioning skills. Us adults are inept in a lot of these executive functioning skills. And I don't want you to be like, oh my God, that's one more thing that we have to like add into our classroom. You can kind of view it like if you look at certain routines or certain parts of your classroom like through the lens of helping kids with executive functioning, it will make your classroom management so much better. Like people always ask me like, oh my gosh, like what consequences do you use? Like what's like the hierarchy of behavior management in your classroom? And honestly, I don't have a lot of behavior management issues because I help kids with these things through the way that I've like set up my classroom, if that makes sense. Like I like design my instruction and design my routines through the lens of helping kids with executive functioning skills. So let's use this lens while we're planning out our morning routine, yeah? Let's dive in by me giving you guys like a crash course in my morning routine. This is more or less the morning routine that I've used for the last like 13 years. In the last few years at my school, we've had like a 30-minute window where kids can like trickle in. They can either go straight to the classroom or they can go to the cafeteria and eat breakfast and then come down to the classroom whenever they're done. It's also an expectation at my campus. I would do this anyways, even if it wasn't an expectation, but we're expected to stand at our doors for that 30-minute time to greet our students as they arrive, which means that I'm standing at my door and I'm unable, like the kids that are inside of my classroom are not able to access me. I'm at my door greeting kids and they're working independently. So you better believe that this was very difficult for a lot of teachers at my campus when we were expected to be over here and our classroom was like independently running themselves over here. However, it was a great system. You give me 10 different types of morning structures, like how kids can come to school, schedules, and this is the one that I would choose over and over and over. That 30-minute window where kids can like start school on their own is perfect. It's gorgeous. I swear it made my fifth graders like coming to school. Okay, so anyways, I'm at my door, my students greet me, we do a whole morning meeting lesson and we practice like how to give like a proper greeting, but more or less there's two like intentions for greeting my students in the morning. One is like a check-in, we can check in with each other. How are you this morning? It's great to see you. They can let me know anything that they want to let me know, maybe something happened after school yesterday, maybe they're getting home from school a different way today, maybe they need extra help with their homework, whatever it is. It's kind of like a chance for us to check in. And it's also to set the tone for my classroom. So my students learn pretty early in the school year that they may have whatever kind of personality, they may be hype in the morning, they may be really sleepy in the morning, but whenever they greet me at the door, that's our chance to show that like we're being professional, we're here to learn. Yeah, we enjoy being around each other, we're happy to be here, and we're also gonna like tone down the silliness. We show that we like mean business, like we're here to work and learn together. And it's just great for like emotional regulation. Once they come in the classroom, they go straight to their backpack hook. They use the same backpack hook every day. They unpack their backpacks. I have like a predetermined list of all the stuff that they need to get out of their backpack. Since I have 3 blocks of fifth graders, like 3 different classes, they need to get everything they need out of their backpacks. That's what works best for me in my classroom because we don't have time. They're not even going to be in my room to be able to like go back and forth and get stuff out of their backpack. So they need to get everything they need out of their backpack for the day. Their headphones, their water bottles, their library books, all those things. This helps them with the executive functioning skills of, anyone know it? Planning and organization. It's also expected that they go to their cubby where their book box is, and that's where their like content materials are housed. So I don't let my like science notebooks, my math notebooks, my folders, things like that, I don't let those leave my classroom because we know that our students struggle with organization. And so if those things leave your classroom, they're probably not going to come back. So they unpack their backpacks, they get their things that they need for the school day out of their cubbies, they go straight to their seat, they set out their communication calendar for me, which we'll talk about. They leave their calendar out and they read their morning message and get to work. My morning message has like any notes for the day, any reminders, and then it has their morning work in like a must-do, can-do format. Having that must-do like cuts down on like any choices they need to make, which is going to help with task initiation. Another expectation in getting ready for their day is that this is the only time that they can sharpen pencils. So if they don't have sharp pencils at 9 o'clock in the morning, whenever it's time for math, like they're gonna have to get sharp ones out of my table supply caddy. Luckily, I have a supplies manager and she keeps that tip-top shape for me. But this helps kids with their planning. They have to think about like, they have to check through their materials in the morning and make sure they have enough sharp pencils and decide like, is this gonna last me through the day or should I go ahead and get up and sharpen my pencils? That's their only time to do that. All of my students in my classroom have a student job. And so a lot of them like take place in the morning. So things like filing papers, maintaining our classroom library, restocking our supply caddies, and then they're expected to like calmly and silently start their day. So to help you figure out like how to make your morning routine, like how to make it work for you, I have that no details left behind resource on my website that asks like, it has every routine and procedure you can possibly think of. And then it has like questions or like bullet points for you to consider for coming up with your own routine. So specifically for morning routine, you need to consider like your timing. Do you have like an open window where kids can trickle in, or like most campuses, you go and pick up your class from the gym and you guys walk in one big line down to your classroom and then you have a line of students ready to come in like all at once. What's your schedule like? Do you immediately go into announcements and pledges and then start your math lesson? Do you have like a 15-minute chunk where you do like morning meeting? Do they go right to specials or intervention? Do they eat breakfast? There's just like so many different things to consider. Classrooms are set up differently. Some of us have lockers, some of us have hooks, some of us have nothing. Okay, so the most important bullet points on almost every routine and procedure that you're gonna have, but especially for morning routine, for pack up, is those voice levels and expectations for like raising your hand and being up out of your seats. So I'm gonna start this with like a huge caveat. If you are here on this channel, it's because you value like calm and structure and like responsive teaching to your students. So, new teachers, listen to me. Look at me in the eyes. Your kids are probably going to be silent. You're gonna not want to. You're gonna be like, oh, that's kind of mean. Like I want to be able to let my kids talk like they want to talk. I know they want to talk. You want them to talk. I want my kids to talk. It's not gonna work. It's not going to work. My foot's cramping. Someone in my comments a few videos back said, like, I'm a seasoned teacher. I've learned through the years that like the only way to make calm mornings work, calm transitions work, calm independent classroom time work is by making them be independent. That's got to be the expectation. If you go into any veteran teacher in your building that is known for like good classroom management, they will have times that their students are expected to be silent. You're in charge. Sometimes students need to be silent. These kids don't have good executive functioning skills. They cannot handle talking to their peers, talking to their friends, and doing their best work. Like it's just not possible. Now we can build in times during our school day to make sure that they get plenty of socialization and talking time, but there are times that are going to be non-negotiables where your students cannot be allowed to talk, period. Now, if you don't take my advice, that's fine. But just know when you come back here next year, I told you so. I told you so. So that being said, if I'm choosing for my students to be silent, that means that I need to give them work that they can do independently. If I know that I need to be at my door and I cannot be monitoring around in my classroom, walking around, that means that I'm gonna have to have very clear expectations and my students are not gonna need my help on that morning work that I give them. If my expectation is for my students to get unpacked and then be seated at their seats the entire time, I'm gonna need to make sure that they have everything they need. Okay, so moving through the list of that no details left behind guide for all the routines and procedures, but we're focusing on morning routine, is consider how are your students going to enter your room? Like I said, do you have the line of 25 kids waiting for you and you just picked them up from the gym? Or do you have kids trickling in, or are they filtering in like a 10-minute window? You know, how are your kids entering your room? Non-negotiable, if you want a calm, structured, responsive, emotionally regulating classroom, do not let those kids come in your room all at once. I've talked about that in other videos. That is number one rule of transitions. You don't move all of your kids at the same time, like all at once. That's just asking for trouble. They can't handle it. So that's why I greet my students at my door. Not only is it like a great time to check in with them, it also controls the flow. So I do it for all three of my classes. Like whenever my classes come in from specials, when my class comes back from lunch, when my class, switches and I get my switching teachers class, every single time I greet them at the door. We check in and I'm controlling the flow of students moving into my classroom like a funnel. I'm not just opening my door and saying like, have at it and letting all 25 kids run into the classroom. You're just asking for trouble. Like that's just chaotic. And like I said, my expectation is also that my students enter my classroom silently. I have a whole other video that you guys have to go watch, a whole other video about how to make these routines actually stick and work, because we know that you can tell your students to be silent coming in your classroom and they're not going to be. So what are you going to do? Go watch that video. It's really good. I'll link it in the description for you guys. The next thing to consider is like where your students going to store their materials, whether it's backpacks or coats or folders, binders, workbooks, lunch boxes, snacks, things for recess, all of those things. Whatever you decide, make sure that it's the same place every single time so the kids have the same backpack hook, label it with their names. The kids have the same cubby, label it with their names. The kids put their lunch in the same lunch tub, which is in the same spot every single day, label that. They share lockers, label it with each kid's name who shares that locker. Think about what materials your students need to gather. Like I said, my students are only in my room for like the morning time and then they switch to their other classes, so they need to get everything they need for the day. But if your students are about to come to the floor for a morning meeting, maybe they don't need to get anything out of their book boxes. Maybe they just need to hang their backpack up and then come have a seat. Like think about like what their next step is, like what they're about to do. Maybe your students are maybe you have primary students and they're about to go to centers, so maybe they just need to take out their lunch box and then go to their first center, whatever it is. So think about like what you're going to have your kids do in that morning time and what materials they're going to need. What does their day look like and what materials are they going to need to get out? A must for a great morning routine is having like a morning message or like an agenda on the board. Teachers get Canva Pro for free. This is not sponsored. People are always like, oh my God, where did you get your slides? I used to pay for slides. You don't have to pay for slides. They have everything you could want over on Canva. So type in daily agenda slides. You will find something that is cuter than your wildest dreams. You can edit it, make it look just how you want. You can put in a little YouTube video with your calm morning music. Like it's perfect. You're welcome. Keep your slide like the same format every single day, like your schedule, your reminders, your work, like your date. Keep it the same every single day. And then you can even use like that slide deck for like your whole day. You could use like, slide 1, your morning message, slide 2, your morning meeting, slide 3, your reading lesson, slide 4, reader's workshop, slide 5 has a timer for the transition over to math. On my morning message, I always had the date. I always had a very brief overview of our day along with like any reminders, like, maybe we have an assembly or maybe we have a field trip, something like that. And then I had their morning work set up in a must-do, can-do format. And I use that same format literally on the first day of school all the way until the last day of school. What morning tasks do your students need to do? So do they need to unstack their chairs? Do they need to go pick up their daily warm-up? Do they need to turn in their spelling homework? Do they need to sharpen pencils? Do they need to go like unplug their Chromebook or unplug their iPad and take it to their seat? Like what are like the morning tasks that your students need to do? And then the last important piece for a morning routine is like, what is their morning work? Which I saved that for like a whole nother section. Just hang on, we'll talk about it. But like once they get all set up for their day and they've got everything they need, then they can start their morning work. So we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, how to make this work for whenever you have like rotating classes. So I did this with my homeroom. We had that 30-minute chunk every morning, but then I had a similar setup, like a similar routine for each one of my 3 different classes. So they would come in my room and we would do like a little mini morning routine almost. I greeted them at the door. They went straight to their book boxes to go get their science, social studies, and math materials. They went straight to their seat. They read the morning message and they got straight to work. It was perfect. Don't forget, you have to teach to them. So go watch that video that I linked in the description, because you can teach them a routine all you want, but it's not going to stick unless you do like certain things to make it stick. So please go watch that video. Like I cannot recommend it enough. But no matter what you decide to do, like the basic bones of like, if you have, multiple classes, you're a middle school teacher, you have 7 classes. I don't know what goes on in middle school. The basic bones are like entering your classroom a certain way, getting prepared for their day, and then starting their work immediately. And the work needs to be like something they can do independently, something that's not like new learning. It should be like a review of something that you've already done before. But like I said, we'll talk about like good morning work in just a minute. Okay, my breakfast people. I've only done this 1 year and it was during COVID. Like, thank God I don't ever have to do it again. I'm so sorry for you guys. So if you eat all at the same time, like all of your students eat breakfast in your classroom at the same time, I would say like to keep it tidy. Like, I don't know about a timer situation, but you need to have some kind of like time limit on it. When the timer goes off, I would say that you have like certain students, like either one student or one per table group or something, be like a custodian, and they come around with either like the double bagged trash bags or a trash can to collect trash. Like what you don't want is all of your students getting up and going to the trash can like all at once. If anything, you can call them like one by one or in table groups to go throw their trash away, very slow and very controlled. Remember, number 1 rule of transitions is we don't let all of our kids transition at once. I prefer not all of my students getting up and walking around with trash. It's much easier to have one kid with a trash can. That just limits like the number of spills and accidents you can have because kids aren't like moving around with trash. You also need to teach them like how to throw away their trash correctly. If you've had breakfast in your classroom, you know what I'm talking about. So I always say like if they had like a tray, I would have them put it like face down. We're not smashing it in there. We're just placing it upside down. Like we had something on our tray that we didn't like, that our grandma gave us, and so we didn't eat it. So we like politely put it face down. If it's double bagged, we make sure that it goes inside of both bags, not in between the bags. If you're having students like get up and coming to the trash can, you need to be by the trash can, at least in the first like 2 months, so that you can monitor for the expectations that you taught them. We're not throwing anything. Like nothing is getting thrown. We are placing it in the trash can. There shouldn't be a single splash of chocolate milk on this wall by the trash can. Let them see you watching them. And then it'll become a habit and they just do it correctly. You're still gonna have to monitor. You could even have a student custodian like monitor it throughout the year, but we're not letting kids just go to the trash can and throw away their trash. However, they need to be taught how to throw away their trash correctly. If your students are eating breakfast all at once, have something for them to like watch on TV. Like we don't want to mix student work or devices with breakfast. So you could put up like little silent fun quiz games on your projector. You could do read alouds. You could do like silent brain teasers, story time from space. Maybe your school does announcements during this time. Like put something up for them to do, because someone corrected me in my last few videos. I guess the quote is idle time is the devil's workshop. So if your students aren't sitting there doing anything, put something up for them to do, or else they're going to find something for them to do that you're probably not going to like. Especially if you're short on time, you're probably going to want to keep them silent. I'm sorry to say, you are. If you're short on time, they're going to spend their time talking and being messy and crazy and stuff and not eating. So you have to like really like move them along, have that timer up, have something for them to watch, and make sure they're like moving along. If your students can come to your room and like some of them are eating or they're all kind of like at different paces, remember you don't want trash and food and like school stuff to mix. So they need to go throw away their trash as soon as they're done with their breakfast. Make sure that you are near the trash can. Like if you have to stand at your door and greet your students, move that trash can by you so that they're forced to be near you and know that you are watching them when they're throwing that trash away. If something does splash on the wall, you can be like, oh, come back, get the paper towel. You see this? Clean that up. You're gonna have to teach them expectations and like accountability for maintaining like a clean space. Like no one wants a dirty classroom. I don't want a dirty classroom. Y'all don't want a dirty classroom. We have to work together to keep our space clean. So when breakfast is over, when this timer goes off, I don't want to see any of those straw wrappers on the floor. I don't want to see any craisins on my floor. We're wiping up with Lysol wipes. I don't recommend using like at my school, they gave us like spray bottles and paper towels during COVID. And it was like, you can imagine what a nightmare that was. Kids cannot handle spraying with other children in proximity. So we did like Lysol wipes. You can ask for donations, put it on your Amazon wish list and put it in your Instagram story. Like whatever kind of wipes, wiping down the desk, even a wet paper towel is okay. Wiping down desks is gonna work better than like spraying anything. More expectations, like if we spill, we raise our hands to let me know and then we clean it up. I shouldn't see a thing on the floor or around the trash can on the floor. If the trash bag is falling into the trash can like this, and show them, raise your hand and let me know so that I can fix it. And then you're gonna have to like build in a system for like keeping your classroom clean. Either like you have a classroom custodian who helps wipe off tables, or you have a classroom custodian who checks when breakfast is over to make sure that that every student cleaned up their space. Maybe there's like one person at each table and they rotate per week, making sure that the table is clean after breakfast. Okay, thoughts and prayers for our breakfast people. Moving on to morning work. Okay, so our common pain points are like our struggles for morning work is that like we don't want to come up with one more thing that we have to prepare, plan, grade, keep up with, right? It needs to be something that's like engaging, because if it's not like engaging for the kids, if the kids don't like it, they're gonna get bored and start acting up. That turns into a cycle because then we have to plan something fun and that takes more planning time. And if it's not fun, then they're naughty. How do we monitor like who's done with what? Where does it get turned in? Like, do I have to grade this? Like there's lots of different things to consider. So I'm gonna give you guys like some criteria, like what makes good morning work. And then I'm gonna give you guys some ideas, okay? So good morning work is low stakes, meaning that like if the kids don't finish it, like it's not gonna like affect their grade, or it's not gonna affect like their academic performance. So it shouldn't be like a test review, or ideally not like finishing up work from their math workshop that they didn't finish yesterday. Like it shouldn't really like affect their academic performance. If you're listening to my advice and you know that your students need to be silent and calm in the mornings, then it should be work that they can do independently. Ideally, you want this to be time for them to practice independently without your help, without your support, which means that it also probably needs to be silent work. You'll want it to be something that they can do while they're at their seats or in like one sustained place. I'm sorry to say this, but it needs to be engaging. And usually you can fix engagement. Like usually you can automatically make something engaging for students, like let them enjoy it by giving them choices, like providing a variety of things for them to do. Ideally, good morning work has no like end, like they could do it forever. Like there's no like end goal. Or you have like can-do options for them to do once they finished it. Ideally, you don't have to keep up with it. And it should be like mostly for the point of like warming up their brain. So like I said, low stakes, not something super difficult or rigorous, just like light, easy, warm up work. Okay, so some ideas. So when I was self-contained, I wound up coming up with like a Monday through Friday schedule. So we did something different each day of the week. When I was departmentalized and I was only teaching science and social studies, I had a reading teammate who only taught reading, and I had a math teammate who only taught math. And we all learned that I was giving my students STEM bends to do every morning, which they loved. The math teacher had them working on math drills every morning, which they hated, but she needed. And then the reading teacher had her students reading every morning. So like each of us was like giving our homerooms, like we had 30 kids getting 30 extra minutes of whatever our content area was. But like I had kids who needed help with math, but we were doing STEM bends. My reading teammate had kids who needed help, who wanted to do some STEM bends, but they were busy reading. Or the math kids needed help in reading, and you get what I'm saying? So we worked together as a team. That's the power of a great team. We worked together as a team to come up with that same Monday through Friday format. So I really recommend like the rotating weekly morning work. So for us, it was Monday was typing club. So that was like a program that like our district paid for, but there's tons of free typing programs that you can use. I have a typing club choice board on my website. I can link it for y'all. And there's that choice. So check for engagement. Your kids will love it. It's so fun. Tuesday was like our intentional reading for fun day. So it wasn't like, you have to read your leveled book from our readers workshop. It was like you could read your library books. I had like science magazines that I would give my kids. They could read out of our classroom library. But Since I want my students silent and in their seats, what I would wind up doing is taking a book box and filling it with like a variety of fun books and rotating it every week. You could even make that like your classroom librarian, like student job, their jobs to like restock the Tuesday reading book bins to like keep them fresh. That way it's one more thing off your plate. A kid can take over that easy. So there's that choice of giving them like a fun book bin of fresh books, and they're not getting up out of their seats. They're choosing a book from that bin. They could do Get Epic, the website with all those different books. Like there's tons of choices to do like a reading for fun morning. Wednesday was our math day. So like early in the year, we would practice like our multiplication and division fact fluency. We had a computer program for this that our kids absolutely loved. It was Imagine Math Facts, highly recommend, but it is expensive. And I think it's district, like your district has to buy it. Or we would simply give them like the one page of like, just multiplication math facts, and then they would have to turn it in, and then they could work on like, fun math games, which I'll talk about. Like if you do have work that you have to turn in, I'll talk about how to make that work. Thursday was our study hall day. So that meant like we all had homework that was due on Friday. So Thursday was like, I have a soapbox that if you give homework, you should also give time in class to do the homework. I don't personally like homework, but our school required it. So I gave homework, and we also gave them time on Thursday mornings to do their homework. So we called it study hall so that they could finish their homework. And also like all of us on the team, like all the teachers, if we had any missing work, we would use that time to like wrangle up students to come over to their rooms and finish up work. And then kids who didn't have any work to finish, they were all caught up on everything. They got to work on STEM bins or choice boards. Like I would give them like a fun list of choices to do. And then on Fridays, you guys know that I love NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. It drops on Thursdays. So then every Friday morning, we would watch that week's edition. It was really cute. But a bunch of other choices that you could do. Like for us, we had literally like 4 different required computer programs that our students had to do. So we wound up having to like use our morning time to do those things to get like our required hours and required lessons completed by our students. I love STEM bins. In my Amazon storefront, I have all of my favorite like STEM, I don't want to call them toys, STEM kits that I would give to my students, and I just had them like in different bins, and students, whoever was done at their table first, got to go choose the STEM bin for their table. Your kids will be so engaged and they will not make a peep. It's also a great donors choose project, so you don't have to spend any of your own money. Y'all know I love my choice boards, so that was always a can-do option for us. I make choice boards. They're $2 a piece on my website. I have them for all the elementary content areas. I have all kinds of like fun ones that are not content-based. They're great independent work. They are super engaging. Your kids will love them. It gives them that choice, so they're automatically like buying in. They think it's fun because they get to choose their activities. It's great for differentiation because it'll have like the choice boards, especially in math, will have like a variety of options for skills to work on. So, your higher level students can have like extension activities, and your students who are still working on like foundational skills can be working on those foundational skills from the same choice board. It's great for spiral reviews. So that means like if you just finished up your unit on like 3-digit multiplication and division and you're about to move on to decimals, but you have kids who are not ready, they can keep working on multiplication and division by using those choice boards while in class, like during your actual lessons, you've moved on to decimals. And then they're also great for like Friday mornings, even Monday mornings, whenever you need like something fun. This is a great time for those school challenges, like, like the reading challenges, the library challenges, coding challenges. We're not going to do the cup stacking challenge though, because that's not going to keep your kids silent and calm. Easy ones that are a little bit more like content based are like doing like word searches, like simple word searches or crossword puzzles of like content vocab words, drawing a picture or a diagram to represent like a certain concept that y'all been working on, independent math games that you've been doing like in your math lessons. For bigger kids or for like those rotating classes, like I would have my morning work, but then also whenever my actual classes would come to me for their instruction, our morning work or our warm-up was a Google form warm-up, and I would put in like state testing questions that I wanted to review with them. And it didn't require any like keeping up with their work on my end because Google form like automatically populates the results for you. And then I would take what we did and like build that into like my instruction. Like I would use that for like starting off our class time. So like I said, I always used a must-do, can-do format. I swear by the must-do, can-do format, you will never hear what do we do now? You will never hear that in your classroom if you consistently use a must-do, can-do format. But the way that I would make that work whenever I had work that kids needed to turn in, like Thursday's the study hall day, or Wednesdays whenever we had math. So my must would be like finish your food web and turn it in. The can do would be like STEM bins, you can do food web's choice board, you can read a science magazine. Or like Wednesday, our math day would be like the must do is finish page 4 of your multiplication facts, then you can do a math choice board or work on our addition math game from yesterday. So if you have to keep up with like, you want to use this time for unfinished work, or you want to keep up with like who's turned in their fact fluency, there's a few different ways you can do this. I'm the sticky note queen. So if I had unfinished work, I had a sticky note on my laptop with the names of students who needed to finish certain things. So I would be monitoring on, we had Securely, that was like it's like Go Guardian, like where you can like monitor all of your students' computer activity. So I would have my computer where I'm monitoring their computer activity while I'm standing at my door greeting my students with my sticky note that had who owed me what work. And then my turn-in tray was really close, so whenever they would come turn that in, I could cross their name off, and then they knew that they could go choose their can-do activity. You could also have like a little turn-in situation near you. So if you're working on like, your fact fluency, or they're practicing their spelling words, or they have work that they need to turn in for their morning work, have them turn it in. And as they come up and turn that work in, you can highlight their name off your roster. Pro tip, I always had like 20 printed off rosters at any given moment in my classroom. Or you could just do like a visual situation, like when you're finished with your page 4 fact fluency, put it on the top right corner of your desk. And then that way, if you see a kid with their Chromebook out working on a can-do choice board, you'll know they're allowed to do that because you see their fact fluency sitting out on their desk, like a visual signal for you. Okay, now I want to go back to that communication calendar that was part of our morning routine, how I said that my students always set out their communication calendar. This is a hill that I will die on. I don't know when this happened. In my school, it happened after COVID. We got rid of planners/agendas. This should be like a requirement. I don't understand why it's not the norm anymore to communicate with parents every day. In elementary school, like, we're doing ourselves a disservice by not communicating with parents every day. It's like you're in this battle alone. If you struggle with behavior management, you're in this battle alone by not communicating with parents every day. It also hits like 4 of those executive functioning skills by having this as part of like your classroom routine. When my school did away with planners, me and my team came up with like a calendar on a piece of cardstock, and our students would get like a positive note or a stamp each day, and then there was a little space for their parents to initial, and then I would check it every morning for a parent signature. If you don't have a system like this where you're communicating with your parents every day, you are doing yourself a disservice. I'm telling you, your kids will be so much better behaved, because there are so many little things that like they're getting away with, where if their parents knew, they wouldn't be getting away with those things. If you're not communicating with parents every day, then you like don't have an accountability system. Like, oh, you don't have your Chromebook for the 3rd day in a row. Like, you could easily let a parent know that, and their kid will have their Chromebook the next day. Like, problem solved. If you don't have a daily communication system, when you do have a problem and you need to go to those parents, it is going to be so much harder, such a bigger deal, so much more awkward. You never even talked to this parent before. They have no idea what's going on in their child's school day. Like, it's just going to be a very difficult conversation to have. Daily communication is also a great way to build positive relationships with families. Quick little positive notes. They went up this many points on their MAP test. They had a great week. Like, it's just so easy. Like, new teachers, don't be scared of the daily communication. Be scared of not communicating, not having relationships with parents, and then having issues. That is scary. That is much scarier, trust me. So much scarier than knowing these families, knowing these parents. Parents know what's going on. You talk to these parents every day. Like, it is worth the time and effort. Please listen to me. I beg ya. If you don't do it, I'll see you next year on the same video. I told you so. Okay, so you are rolling out your daily communication system, yes. So the next thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you have like some kind of accountability system. So what's gonna happen to make sure that you maintain the system every day and to where kids are getting their calendars or planners or agendas signed every day. So mine every morning is I go around to each student. That's also a time that I one-on-one check in with them. I check for their adult signature. I initial if their parents have signed it, or I write not signed and I circle it if it's blank. That's just a way that I can keep like documentation if a kid like consistently doesn't get their calendar signed. You can bring that kind of stuff to like parent-teacher conferences, IEP meetings, things like that. That one-on-one time, whenever I go check in with each kid for their calendar, is a time that they can give me like permission slips. That's a time they can tell me, hey, I need help with my homework. That's a time they can turn in like yearbook money. That's a time that they can say like, hey, my mom wants you to give her a call about this. Like, it's just another good time for them to check in with me. Because like I said, we're silent in the morning, so I have to build in a system where my kids can still check in with me as needed, because I can't expect them to like work completely independently and silently and like not talk to me at all. They just have to wait, and they can talk to me either at my door or they can talk to me whenever I check their calendar. Because if I'm talking to my students in the morning and I'm expecting them to be silent, the silence is not going to stick. Even though it's me, I'm the grown up and I'm the one talking, the silence won't stick. I have to like model calm for my students. Also, talking back and forth to your students kind of creates like a buzz and makes it hard for you to monitor other groups of students that are talking when they're supposed to be silent. Okay, back to the calendar. So after I initial their calendar, I pick it up and then I collect the stack with me. Each of the homeroom teachers takes the stack, we put it in a file folder and binder clip it, and that goes from class to class. So then throughout their 3 classes, if a teacher has an issue, they can write a note in their calendar, good or bad. At the end of the day, I get the stack back from my homeroom. I give them a stamp if they don't have any note in there, or I write a positive note. I call their name, they come pick it up, or my communication specialist, my student job, the students' names are on the back of the calendar, so I could give my stack of calendars to my communication specialist, and she can call each student's name. Students can pick up their calendar and then go to their backpacks to pack up. So passing those calendars out is a great way to like filter students over to their backpacks during pack up time. So again, I said we need an accountability system if we're gonna have this. Like we can't just like tell students to do it and then be okay whenever they don't do it. So what happens if this calendar is not getting signed? So like I said, I document not signed. We don't have a consequence on day 1 and 2. Day 3, we call home or I email the parent. What happens if a student loses their calendar because they struggle with the organization skill of executive functioning? I give them a new copy and then I'll write in big old Sharpie at the top, red Sharpie, second copy, and I'll write their name. Third copy, and I'll write their name. That way parents know that they've lost their calendar. That especially comes in handy if a kid had a negative note, didn't get it signed, and then lost their calendar. Now the parent will see, oh, they lost their calendar. They got a brand new one that says new calendar at the top for any of the kids who are trying to like skirt the system. What happens if a student gets a negative note in their calendar and then they don't get it signed? I contact home. And then at the end of the month, I collect all of the calendars and keep like a little list of students. Like usually the students turn in their calendars. I might have like 1 or 2 students who don't have it that day. They'll bring it like the next day. Like I said, it's great for documentation. Okay, now let's talk about pack up, the like most notorious time of day. It's a canon event if you're a new teacher to struggle with pack up. Like it's inevitable. Just let it happen. Just kidding, you're here. It's not gonna happen. So our goals with pack up is that we wanna pack up calmly. We want to reset the classroom to have a nice, calm, responsive space. And we want to get out of the classroom and get home safely. Those are my goals for pack up. So some ways that I achieved that, this is more or less like my pack up routine. It's not super updated, but it's the most recent one that I have. So in my most recent years teaching, my students were in their 3rd class and then they would come back to me 10 minutes before dismissal. So you better believe that I was at my door greeting my students as they came in to pack up one by one. Why? Yes, checking in. 2, I'm controlling the flow into my classroom. My students would go straight to their seats. They would take that time to get organized because like I said, I had certain materials that stayed in the classroom and certain materials that needed to go home. Because we know that certain materials, like your content materials, your unfinished work, things like that have important stuff in there, if they take those home, the chances of them coming back is very, very slim. They're gonna get damaged, things are gonna get lost, like just make them stay at school. They used to set their calendars out and then get a stamp from my communication specialist, but in previous years I changed it to where they would wait for me to call their name, or they would wait for my communication specialist to call their name. They would come pick up their calendar from us, and that was their signal to go to their backpack. They would put their content stuff in their book box, they would get their backpack, they would get their coat, and they would go to their seat. All of this is calmly, quickly, and silently. They would put their Chromebook, they would put their homework folder, they would put their communication calendar, they would put their library books in their backpack, they would stack their chair, and then they would wait silently at their seat to be dismissed. I had lots of student jobs, so students would usually use this time to do student jobs. We're cleaning up our space, we're cleaning up the classroom, we're restocking book boxes if we're the classroom librarian, we're turning off my lamps if we're the electrician, we're checking up on our earbud system if we're the computer tech to make sure that everything's nice and tidy and accounted for, we're plugging in our Chromebooks over at the Chromebook cart if we're the computer tech, and then what's everyone else doing if they're not doing a job? I always had on ASMR video, because like I said, what is it? Idle's time is the devil's workshop, so if your students are just supposed to sit there and stare off into space, they're not going to. They're going to find something to entertain themselves. So from the No Details Left Behind guide, some things to get you set up for your pack-up routine. Consider those voice levels. You already know what I'm going to say. Think about how you're going to chunk your kids in transition. So we're never sending all of our kids to our backpacks at once. We're never letting all of our kids line up at once, right? Right? You need to consider like how are your students going to organize their materials, like what stuff stays at school and where is it going to go? What role does that daily communication home, what role does that play in your students' pack up? Is it planners? Do they need to do something with their planners at the end of the day? Do you build in time for them to, copy down a message off the document camera into their planners? If your student devices stay at school, we know this is a notoriously tricky time. It gets chaotic, it gets messy, it doesn't get done correctly, Chromebooks get dropped. We already know I'm gonna say, don't send all of your students to go do that at once. However, I know that can take a long time, so if you're short on time, try to split up like where like the charging stations are, unless you have one of those carts. The main goal here though is to like have students put their devices away like in chunks. To speed it up, you could have students just put their Chromebook in and then have a computer tech or two go and plug them in the way that you want them plugged in. What are you going to have students do while they're waiting? I love ASMR videos, but you could also do like mindfulness or meditation or like breathing exercises like up on your screen. You could do read alouds either like up on the TV, or you could have students, like younger students, older students, come sit on the carpet while you do a read aloud. And then consider like how your students like exit or line up. The way my campus did it was that we sent students out of our classrooms. Like they didn't even line up. We just sent them out based on how they went home. And then a word to the wise that I've learned like the hard way is that whenever I was a new teacher, I struggled so much with pack up. I would make the time that we packed up. I was like, we need more time. We need more time. It's too chaotic. I need to pack up earlier. I was moving in the opposite direction. I needed less time. I was creating like a longer and longer and longer pack up, trying to like exercise control over each stage, over each step in our pack up, that it was like creating too much time and things were like unraveling. Do you know what I mean? So I've made it now to where pack up takes about 7 minutes. Like I said, my students come in my door from their last class and then we're out the door off to dismissal in 7 minutes. At the beginning of the year, it takes us about 15 minutes though, because we're moving a lot slower through it because we're still learning it, and they know that I'm watching them to make sure that we're doing the steps correctly. I'm redirecting them, making them go back and do it correctly. Like it takes longer in the beginning of the year. If you give them too much time, they're gonna start acting up. They're gonna like find little ways to entertain themselves in that time. Too little time, you're going to be rushing, you're going to lose control, you're going to move too fast, things are going to, gonna like lose your grip on things. Okay, and then to wrap this up, I cannot stress this enough. You could have the most beautiful morning routine, the most beautiful calm pack up routine, but if you do not teach it, practice it, and enforce it consistently throughout the year, it will not matter. It will fall apart. All of your work and energy and blood, sweat, and tears will be wasted. It will be in vain because you have to enforce it consistently. So please go watch that video. I linked it in the description if you haven't watched it already. It's going to break down like very clearly, very explicitly how to teach these things to your students, how to enforce it come October, November, December, because first year teachers, you can teach them beautifully. They will start to fall apart if you don't maintain it. Not first year teachers, I know y'all know what I'm talking about. Like I said, if you are here, you want a calm classroom that runs itself. We want to love our teaching jobs again because our classroom management is so on point. That's what we're doing here. We need to remember that with our routines, calmness is contagious. Chaos is contagious, and that chaos will spread. We don't want that. We're not doing that over here. We're gonna have calm classrooms. Our calmness will be contagious. So while all of our other teacher friends, all the other first year teachers, all the other teachers down the hall are screaming, crying, throwing up come October because their classrooms are starting to fall apart, we have taught our routines so well. We've maintained them so well. We stood 10 toes down in enforcing those routines so well that come October, our classroom is running itself. We're sitting in our rolly chair, not speaking a word during pack up because our kids just know what to do. Okay, so stick around for the post-dismissal debrief after this. It's where we're just yapping, doing teacher things. It's available through my Patreon, which I'll link in the description for you guys. There's this viral post going around about like summertime tasks to do if you're a first year teacher. We'll see about that. I'm going to go through it. I've only made it like halfway through and I've already got some thoughts, because if there's one thing your teacher big sister can do, it's give tough love and have some thoughts. But also, like, honestly, I want my first year teachers, I want you guys to like spend your time wisely, because veteran teachers, we know that we've spent like our blood, sweat, and tears over the summer working on things or having like great plans for stuff, and then come to find out like our school doesn't do it that way, or our team has a whole other way of doing it, or it didn't work like structure wise, or it just didn't make any sense once we got into our classroom. So our time and energy is precious. So I don't want us to waste that. I don't want any of you guys to waste that. So I am going to go through that with you guys on the post-dismissal debrief. So I hope you guys check that out. And in our next YouTube video, I'm going to go over instruction. I'm so excited. I'm going to show you guys how to be badasses when it comes to instruction, because our classroom management is tied to instruction. Your instruction is your classroom management. They cannot exist like separately. They are married. So if you want to know about success criteria and tasking, not asking, and active answering, and why learning targets actually are that bitch, stay tuned for the next video, okay? See y'all then.